games, their arguments, right? I even learned they know a lot more songs on the radio than I ever even realized. Is that you get to hear and experience God when you rest. I also had the opportunity last month to go to Chicago to see 3 different churches who are kicking the door open wide to their community and shouting boldly that Jesus loves the people, and the people in their community are responding. One in a very affluent neighborhood. People come and go. The church has grown in leaps and bounds in the last 15, 20 years. Another church I went to go visit was a church that's down in south central Chicago. I need to tell you, when I landed in Chicago, I got off to get my rental car. Okay, my flight was an hour delayed. And so when I got there on Monday morning, apparently rental car places at the airport, it's not the time to get a rental car because everyone doing business takes the cars. So I'll walk up to the rental car desk, the place I reserved a car with. Okay, I'll leave their name nameless, but we are going to boycott them as a church. Okay, I'll tell you later. All right, I'm kidding. And I went to them and they said, "Sorry, we don't have a car, but we're going to give you a better. We'll resource you or outsource you to another car lender place or rental place, and they'll hook you up with a car. We've already talked to them." I want to let you know that bless these people's heart. They were great with the business. I just want you to know their name should speak volumes to a new marketing strategy that's needed, okay? The place was called Rent-A-Wreck, all right? True story. You can look it up. Capital W-R-E-C-K, Rent-A-Wreck. And that's where they sourced me to. Rent-A-Wreck apparently has a great marketing strategy because people were going there, but it was 5 miles away from the airport, and they drove me to the airport, drove me to Rent-A-Wreck, right? I got over there and I walk in and the lady says, "Because of your hassle, the other car rental place would like us to upgrade you to a luxury car." Right? I said, "Well, I don't need a luxury car. I don't even know what that means." Okay, I'm just being honest. I don't know where that fits in the spectrum of cars. I said, "If I'll just take an economy car, I need something cheap, right? Good on gas, and just driving around." I should have known I should have taken the luxury car, or at least a car in between, like maybe a car with 3 wheels or something, right? And all of a sudden the car comes pulling around. They pull up with this little white car out in front, and out in front it was a white Fiat, all right? Now you have to understand, I'm on my way to South Central Chicago to go visit inner city churches, okay? Nate Bruns already sticks out, okay? Me alone is different. And now they put me in a white Fiat, okay? And as I'm traveling through the neighborhoods, they just laughed at me, all right? Like, no one bothered me at all. I think they had pity. Like, they were trying to find what car they were going to hijack and rob. They're like, "This guy, just let him go." Like, we might not know Jesus, but he needs to, okay? And as I went there, I have to tell you, this church that was there, what was so awesome is that they're a church that in the last 15 years ago, 75% of their church drove into the neighborhood, and 75% of their neighborhood was affluent, good working individuals. And over the last 15 years, 75% of their church now is in the neighborhood rather than driving in. And what broke my heart to hear, but they're pushing through and sticking to what God's called them to. Over 50% of those people that went there no longer with the church anymore. And the reason why is they said, "We're just not in it for what you want to do here." But now they have people from all over their neighborhood walking to the church. They don't have a bunch of a parking lot at all. I said, "How do you have all these people without a parking lot?" I said, "No one drives a car. They all walk here." And everyone shows up. They have people from a Pentecostal background, a Baptist background, and a no background. And their worship is beyond eclectic as they're trying to help everyone worship and grow and learn in Christ. You see, and then there's the other church that I went to. It's down by the United Center in Chicago. It's where the Bulls play. I was in town that night, on that Monday night, before I went to go visit it. It's when the Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup championship, like in Chicago. First time in, like, I guess, decades or something. It was borderline riots, okay? Like, people were all, like, celebrating hockey. I stayed with a non-Christian family while I was there, and the wife asked me, "Do you like hockey?" I says, I'm not really not against it. I'm just not overly a fan. She said, "If you don't like the Blackhawks and the White Sox, you're an expletive." And she called me a name, okay? And I learned from that as they're down there at the United Center, it is the most eclectic and diverse neighborhood in the city. Some has gone to say it's in the top 5 in the world. There are people from all different nations and creeds and backgrounds and religions, all living within the 5-mile radius of the United Center. God is blessing the churches, and I was blessed by going and seeing God in motion. And if I wouldn't have rested, we don't get to see the opportunity of God in motion. You see, if you do not rest, you'll begin to believe that what God is doing in the lives of people around you and even in your own self, it becomes mundane. As you begin believing that what has happened is just status quo. And you step away and you come back like the disciples did, and guess what happened? They feed 5,000 men and more women and more children with these small loaves and small fish. Because they began to see they thought what they were doing was the pinnacle. As we conclude today, I want to challenge you with two things, church. And it's in two parts. It comes in the form of two questions. The first one is this: are you resting? I mean, Sabbath resting. Are you resting? Do you have a day that you are not working for pay or scheduling life? For example, you're not working overtime, or you're not having kids in a ball game or traveling around with your kids. There's people in this church I know that 3 to 4 days a week, and even on weekends, your kids are involved in something. And you're driving them there, and the whole time they're not seeing rest. I want to tell you, if there's another thing that I've learned over the last month, is my family needs to improve upon this as a family as a whole. Is that there's many times that we just go and we live as a family, but we don't rest together. And so for those of you that have kids, or maybe even empty nesters, maybe your Sabbath rest you can start doing as a family. Maybe it's in your backyard and just spending time there. Now understand, we need to clarify, I'm not telling you to dress in black, get in a closet dark lit, and read Leviticus 5 times. Spend time where God is at and listening to God, so you can hear the whisper, so you can hear the loud voice. Maybe if you have children, it's in the backyard just playing a game together and listening to what God is doing in their lives, or what God is wanting to do in their lives. Because I've been convicted of this, and I want to share this with you. Parents, if you do not rest, your children will never learn to rest. If you do not rest in God, they will not know how to rest. In the business of our culture, the business of society, it happens today, day after day, and day after day. It's something that's taken in, and we need to help guide them to biblical rest. You see, in the second question I posed to you, or second challenge, is this week I asked you to ask an elder or staff member this week if they are resting. If they're resting. If you need their phone number, you call me. I'll text it to you, all right? Maybe not their cell number, but we'll get you something, okay? I want you to ask a staff member or elder if they're resting. And here's the reason why. It's because if the leaders of the church are not resting, the church will suffer spiritually. And some of you say, well, don't you get vacation days? That's one thing I heard when I was on sabbatical. I thought you get vacation. No, it's not vacation days. Staff gets vacation. Sabbath rest is different than vacation. I don't know about you, but going to my parents' house for a week and seeing family is not Sabbath rest. Amen? Can we say amen? Right? But the reality is ask the staff, ask the elders, are they resting? Because I believe it to be true going into this month, and I believe it's still true coming out of the month, is that I'm going to do everything I can in my power, and we've talked about this with the elders this last Monday, is coming up with a written plan so that elders and staff take Sabbath rest. And you know why we need to make sure that the staff and elders in particular are taking rest? Is because some people are really good at working, some are not very good at resting. And I don't know about you, but sometimes people need accountability in their work, other people need accountability in their rest. And so I encourage you to ask them, are they resting? You see, because I see this is because if we're going to lead and we're going to be spiritually healthy as a church, we need to rest. I'll close with this as the team comes. Rest with God is needed. And church, this week, I just ask you, will you boldly rest this week? In some of you, I know it's possible you've never taken Sabbath rest in your whole life. Never. And I don't know that for sure, but statistically proven, you don't. And some of you bought into the kind of the legalistic lie, religious lie, if you will, is that Sabbath rest only happens when you come to church on Sunday for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, right? And that's not bad. Maybe Sunday is your day of rest. But take a time this week that fuels you. Maybe out in the garden. Maybe it's out in your yard. Maybe it's out on a boat. Maybe it's just taking your wife out to dinner at the lake where there's nothing around. And spend time listening to God together. Because, church, I believe this. If we're going to live boldly for Christ and not be overwhelmed by the news feeds on your Facebook page, right? All the things that everyone, I just want to let you know, there's a lot of people that have an opinion about things. Have you noticed that? Like, everyone has an opinion. And once you start listening to opinions, it gets a little weighty, right? But I just want to tell you, guess what? God's got it under control. God's got it under control. He breathed it into existence. Man messed it up. And He sent Jesus to save us. Will you rest in that God this week? Church, stand with us as we pray.